What happens when you take a short story written by the son of the king of horror himself, and base the antagonist on notorious real-life serial killers like Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and John Wayne Gacy? You get The Black Phone. The movie begins in the late 70s. Now wait a minute, this is based off of a story by Stephen King's son? Not to alarm anyone, but if you see a clown somewhere, let me know. This is Finney, played by Mason Thames, and his sister Gwen, played by Madeline McGraw. There's also Bruce, played by Tristan Prevong, who unfortunately won't be around for long. Child disappearances seem to be a somewhat regular occurrence around here, and if the kids aren't being snatched off the street, they're beating each other to a pulp. Case in point, Robin here, played by Miguel Cazares Mora. To be fair, the other kid did deserve it. Not even Finney is immune to targeting by other kids. As a matter of fact, he seems to be a favorite among Maddie, Buzz, and Matt, played by Jordan Isaiah White, Spencer Fitzgerald, and Brady M. Ryan.
See the sign? It says boys.
Yeah, boys, not fags.
Ha! Another Weasley.
Lucky for Finney, he has Robin on his side. Elsewhere in school, Gwen has a sit-down with Detective Wright and Detective Miller, played by E. Roger Mitchell and Troy Rudisil. They're investigating the disappearances and want to know how Gwen knows that the grabber always has black balloons, when they never let that information be known. Apparently, it's because Gwen occasionally has dreams that tend to turn out to be true. Finney looks after their drunkard father, played by Jeremy Davies, whom some of you Lost fans may recognize, while Gwen spends the night at a friend's. Unfortunately, as soon as she comes home the next morning, her father unleashes some hella abuse. This is all due to the police having come to his work. Speaking of child endangerment, Robin is the next victim of the grabber, which incites the whole neighborhood to go searching for him. Since this doesn't turn anything up, the detectives return to Gwen, asking her to help them with whatever ability she might have. But even she can't give them any clues. And in Robin's absence, Finney gets the shit beat out of him. Bless Gwen for embodying a Rottweiler, though. Gwen heads off once again to her friend's house, and Finney comes across a stranger on his way home. You guessed it, it's the grabber, played by Ethan Hawke, and he grabs Finney, taking him back to his holding cell of a basement. He may have been kidnapped, but at least Finney gave the grabber something that would likely warrant stitches.
Is that the phone?
Okay, thanks for clearing up what level of batshit we're dealing with here. Well, Finney is stuck here, it seems. But at least there's a moderate amount of privacy. Remember that phone the grabber mentioned? Yeah, it don't work, but Gwen's friend's phone does. And this is how her father lets her know that now her brother is the one who's missing. Finney is hopeful that the police or anyone will find him, but the grabber informs him that this little room is soundproof, so that's not much of an option. He explores some other possible ways to get out of here, but none seem to be viable.
If anyone could have broke that window, they already would have done it. Robin would have done it.
We've been trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty.
Stop it.
Stop what? Ah! I just wanted to look at you.
You know, I think I know who keeps calling. It's Chris Hansen. Yeah, that's the right response to that. Good news and bad news. Good news is that apparently Bruce is here to try to help Finney escape. Bad news is he's dead. Bruce informs Finney that there may be a way out by digging into the dirt of the foundation under the tiles. That's what he tried to do, but he didn't have enough time. Meanwhile, Gwen receives a vision about Bruce, as well as Finney being trapped somewhere in a house. This leads her to begin a search for a house that matches the one that she saw. During a moment where the grabber finally brings Finney some food, it seems like he forgot to lock the door. As much as it seems like it, this is not a possible way out. Another previous victim, Billy, played by Jacob Moran, tells him that if he tries to leave this way, the grabber will be up there waiting for him and will beat him to death. He also points out a cable that he had torn out and hid, so Finney can use it to get up to the grated window. Unfortunately, it doesn't work as he had hoped, and thus, it's another option crossed out. With yet another vision, Gwen goes to her father to plead her case about the concept of her dreams possibly being able to help them find Finney. Despite the fact that such abilities were what led to his wife's suicide, Terrence decides to help Gwen look for the house. Detective Wright and Detective Miller, continuing their investigation, go to the house of Max, played by James Ransone. Well, technically it's his brother's house that he's staying at. Max seems to be hyper-fixated on these disappearances himself, and makes some good points, but, of course, neither of the detectives are inclined to believe anything he says. What Max isn't aware of is the fact that the latest missing boy is directly under his feet. A bit later, the grabber returns with food and a very important question.
Tell me your name.
Why do you care?
I usually don't.
So Finney gives him a fake name, which I can't fault him for. It's one of the top 5 rules when kidnapped, not to tell your captor your real name. But this was a loaded question as the grabber already knew his name. While this could have had a worse outcome, Finney is once again left to make a choice on whether or not to try to escape out the door. Another ghost makes an appearance to try to help him. God damn these ghosts. Ringing the phone is enough. Griffin, played by Banks Rapetta, informs Finney that the grabber is currently asleep, so he has a shot at getting out of here. The catch is that there's a lock on the screen door. Thankfully, Griffin carved the combination, as it was his bike lock, into the wall. All Finney has to do is figure out the right order of the numbers. Easy. Fuck. While Finney manages to escape the house, he doesn't get very far, unfortunately.
Nighty-night, naughty boy.
And Finney finds himself once again in the grabber's basement, with the phone ringing. The individual on the other end is Vance, played by Brady Hepner, the former pinball champion and local tough guy. At the exact same time, Gwen follows Vance in a vision, where he leads her exactly to the grabber's house. So now she has the address. Vance tells Finney that through some destruction that he had caused, he can gain access to the other room by breaking through the wall. Finney successfully does this and gets into the freezer, but the freezer is locked. A final call is made to Finney, and this one is by Robin. He gives him something of a pep talk while also teaching him how to fight back. While Finney prepares to face the grabber once and for all, Gwen continues her search for the house, giving some major Georgie vibes here as well. Remember what I said before about a clown? With the help of all the previous victims, Gwen does find the same house from her visions. Being the smart girl she is, she immediately calls the detectives. This is the point where everything begins to hit the fan. For example, Max finally puts it together and realizes that his own brother is the grabber. He's not terribly helpful to Finney, though.
Don't worry about it. We can talk about this.
Max got axed. I'm sorry.
Samson!
That's not a dog, that's a demon! Regardless, Finney and the ghost's plan works. But before he ends the grabber, his previous victims have a message for him.
Welcome to the nightmare end of your pathetic little life. You don't have much time. Today's the day, motherfucker. I can't kill you, hijo de puta. So Finn is gonna do it for me. Finn's arm is mint!
Here's the thing. The house Gwen found is where the grabber buried his victims, and the house that Finney finally escapes from is right across the street. The grabber is dead, the lost children have been found, siblings and father reunited. Another bonus is it doesn't seem like anyone will be messing with Finney now. And with that, the credits roll. This movie surprised me. Very pleasantly, too. This is a case where I went into watching it for the very first time knowing very little. I obviously knew that a lot of people really liked it, and Ethan Hawke played a creep, but that was it. I could tell that it was written by somebody who was very close to Stephen King, and that's not a bad thing. It easily kept my attention all the way through, even though, once again, this is probably one that would be considered a slow burn. I oddly enough was not expecting any supernatural or paranormal elements, but once they did start to show up, I didn't feel like they were out of place. I think it's interesting to have two siblings who have similar abilities, but different. I really like the concept of all the past victims of the grabber wanting to help Finney for one reason or another. They were still scary, but they were on the good side, so to speak. The ending is something that I'm sure pretty much all of us wanted. It felt like it fulfilled the story that had been told. I would easily consider Finney a final boy. I like all of the characters and how they interact with each other, especially Finney and Gwen. Often you find one of the siblings to be really annoying, usually the younger sister, but in this case, I was ecstatic to see what Gwen was gonna do next. And it was so easy to root for Finney. The grabber is another really interesting character to me, and I am glad that they did not explain anything, really, of his backstory. It just gave little hints. And what I hope does not happen is something of a prequel for the grabber. I don't want to know. Sometimes it's a lot better just to keep things not known about a character. And in this case, it works really well. I like how the ghosts were presented. They didn't look just ridiculously cheesy. It's probably a good thing that they didn't go with the whole stereotypical transparent kind of wispy looking ghosts. All the same, they were fucking creepy. There were well-placed jump scares, they didn't feel cheap. The special effects looked really good, and they were kept pretty subtle. And all that was primarily done by Matt Barrett. I know that the mask of the Grabber was done by Tom Savini, and it's fantastic. I had no idea that it was interchangeable, so that added another element of smiling mouth, frowny mouth, no mouth, top off. Either way, it was creepy and very unique. I had never seen a mask that I can really compare that one to before. I also like the score and soundtrack, which was done by Mark Corvin. Oddly enough, a lot of the needle drop points and songs that they incorporated into the movie were nostalgic to me. And that's probably because that's music that my parents would listen to when I was growing up. So I immediately recognized it. It's a very nice score. It fit with all of the scenes, especially when something needed to be very tense. And just on a side note, this is more of a personal positive to me. But here is a horror movie that is good, that I like, that was set in the area very close to where I grew up. I have another horror movie based in Colorado that is not elves. So with all that being said, I'm giving The Black Phone 9.5 out of 10 bloody thumbs up. As I said, I really like the story that was told, and how tension was built throughout, how it kind of played with you and your want to see Finney get out of this situation. I was very intrigued by the Grabber. I wanted to see why he was doing what he was doing, but at the same time I didn't want to know. These switches of personality were what made it very hard to know what he was going to do next, and that's good. I have to give major props to all the child actors, especially Madeline McGraw. I also have to commend Ethan Hawke. This is the first time that I've seen a full movie with Ethan Hawke that was also horror. It felt realistic. Minus, maybe, for some, the whole ghost vision elements. It felt like it happened, or it could have happened. It also felt like, yes, it did take place in the 70s. So, I would recommend The Black Phone to Stephen King fans. Clearly his son is doing quite well on his own path. Slasher fans. And anyone who would like to see a modern horror movie that has some twists you probably didn't see coming. See you later.